All right, so there you have it. Quality Assure, Umalusi there giving their take on how the 2024 exam sitting actually went. And I suppose it's worth painstakingly sitting through that because a lot of the focus around this time of the year is on the National Senior Certificate. And we forget that there are several other qualifications actually that people write for during that time. And that includes the NCV, the N2 and the N3, perhaps details of which may be explained at a different time. But beyond that, there are also a couple of administrators of these results. Typically, we focused on DBE, that's the Department of Basic Education, as well as the Independent Examination Board, the IEB, private schools, if you like. But there are other administrators, including the Higher Education Department. It's the Department of Higher Education Training as well as SAICA, the Southern Africa Comprehensive Assessment Institute. And so Umalusi has to comment on all of them. But for your consideration, what we've heard, and perhaps why you were sticking around, is that Umalusi has approved the release of the results for the 2024 National Senior Certificate results for both IEB and the DBE. Of course, the overall performance will be announced this evening by the Basic Education Minister, that's Siviwe Gwarube. And the backdrop, of course, some education experts warning against comparing the class of 2024 to those of previous years. In fact, they've pointed to the fact that these classes have different experiences. So let's take stock as the wait continues for many of these matriculants on their mental health, and bring in the Executive Director at Pastors on Call, that's Sakhile Masilela, who's with us in studio and has been for almost an hour. Thank you for your patience and helping us listen through what I think was a very important briefing. We're just waiting to hear those magic words that Umalusi has approved the release of these results. That may mean very little, though, for the many young people watching who are still very anxious about how they performed at a very personal level. Yes. As a start, how do you reckon they could make that anxiety, or rather make that wait a little less anxious?
Well, let me start by introducing myself. Of course, this is Pastors on Call. However, this is what I think the youth can do at this point in time. Please be careful of two things. Now, one, please don't be too excited. Please don't be too sad, because these extremes unfortunately lead our children to a place where they cannot, or they should I say, where they make a lot of mistakes that can be terminal sometimes. Sometimes you find people get into accidents all because of the happiness of their results, and sometimes they get into a lot of sadness and unfortunately do the opposite of life, unfortunately. And so what we are saying then, therefore, to the youth is, please don't be too excited, please don't be too sad. Watch what you do, and make sure that you keep everything being in mind of the fact that tomorrow is still there as well. Yeah. And then to those who have not done so well, tomorrow is still there. There's a lot of things that are in your hands that you are capable of doing beyond the discouragement that you currently go through.
Right. Perhaps it is worth taking a step back, actually. Tell us a bit more about Pastors on Call.
Pastors on Call is an organization that seeks to provide pastoral services to anyone without them needing to subscribe, or should I say, be affiliated to any denomination. And so the things that we provide are things like global negotiations, marriage counseling and marriage officiation, funeral services, of course, or funeral officiation, and child blessing or dedication, baptism, and many others as well.
Right. Yeah. And I suppose it's worth speaking to you because in our communities, a lot of people still look to the church, especially around times of uncertainty, which may be the case for many matriculants. Yeah. And the focus rightly is on the pupils, but there's also a fair amount of heavy lifting done by the parents too.
Yes, definitely. What we find at this current juncture is the fact that parents have expectations. And unfortunately, some of the expectations are well met and some of them are not well met. And so we are trying to create a bridge between the child and the parent so that at least there is harmony between the both parties. What you find is that parents now, because of the anger of the bad results, find themselves telling their children, please just go back to the school, wear your uniform and go back again. And yet there are other alternatives that can be found. And so what we're trying to say to those who have not done so well, to their parents and to them as well, is that find alternatives on how to deal with the matter in a manner that can uplift the esteem of the child outside of the discouragement that they're currently facing. Already the results are a bad situation. So it is very necessary that our parents deal gently with the children, but of course lifting them up and their self-esteem, whilst also dealing with the direct problems that are currently being faced in their homes. Also to those who have done quite well, they can easily be in the euphoria of the greatness that they have and not face the reality that there's tomorrow. So we are also trying to create a bridge there as well to say, look, we are great, we're happy about the results that you've got. However, please note this and that. And so what's best is what we have suggested to many parents is create a mind map with your child, with their goals and their aspirations, and make them a real reality that they can face on a day-to-day basis, so that they're able to wake up every morning and realize the goal is still to push forward. We're not at the end. We're still moving forward towards our goals. Yes.
Sure. For those people who don't do well, when do the parents start with the "I told you so" conversations? Because I think that's also a bit difficult, right? Because you mentioned the idea of reinforcing and, coming up with corrective measures.
Sure.
But I'm sure there's a time and a place for that.
Yeah, that's true. However, the "I told you so" conversation needs not to have the "I told you so" phrase.
Right.
Yeah, it can be a lot gentle, with hugs and kisses or whatever that can be, but reassuring the child. It can happen at any time, but the tact and the way around it is very, very important.
Sure. Today we are watching a breakfast for high flyers, and I think often we don't speak about the anxiety that accompanies people who've built that kind of reputation.
Sure.
You're known as, hitting things on your first try and doing it in record time.
Yeah.
And I suppose sometimes we run the risk of forgetting that even for those who do really, really well, this might still be a difficult time, actually.
Definitely. And so what we find is that we end up leaving people where they are all because of what we think is where they are. So allow me to be a pastor at this point and say what is very necessary in these circumstances is to help our children to recognize that though in the book of John chapter 2 there's a guy who there's a wedding in Cana where the water that is turned into wine is in jars that are not particularly great. What is there, what is kept is the wine. Yes, the jars might not be good, but what we are keeping is the wine. And so that's what is more important to both the achievers and the the low achievers, or those who have not done great. Please remember that maybe the container is not too good, but what is contained in the container is what we're looking for, which is them. The marks might not be too great, or the marks might be great, but most importantly, we are looking for them, because what makes the country go forward is them. Yeah,
you're speaking to, I suppose, conversations now around character, right? Yeah. And this is certainly a character-defining moment for many people, both the high flyers and not.
Sure.
And I suppose it's also an important time to bring in a bit of perspective. Those of us who have, I suppose, the benefit of looking back at our matric years, can say that, yes, it's an important aspect of your life, and perhaps it can in some ways feed into what happens next. Yeah. But it certainly doesn't define the rest of your life, does it?
Sure, it doesn't. It doesn't define the rest of your life. And that's what we're talking about. That please remember there's a bigger reality than what you are currently going through at this point in time. And so to anyone who wants to find who we are pastorsOnCall.org, and they can find us on the internet. And with every other thing that they need, whether they want to call us or email us or WhatsApp us, everything is there on the website. Thank you.
All right, and I suppose that's a good place to leave it. Sakhile Masilela, thanks once again for popping by and for your patience. Really do appreciate all of that, of course. And I suppose that's an important message to reiterate the fact that, of course, there is support out there if you find perhaps that you're struggling, overwhelmed with the anxiety of waiting, or perhaps your results aren't what you hoped for. Once again, Sakhile Masilela is Executive Director at Pastors on Call. We'll continue our countdown to that official announcement expected later on this evening. The Basic Education Minister will certainly give us what those facts and figures are looking like as those individual performances continue trickling in for pupils around the country.